Tonight, the movement finally gets around to showing the reality of a bunch of hormonal, unsupervised teenagers. Gothtopia wraps up with a resounding and Swamp Thing shows that stranger danger should always be followed, especially when the strangers self-profess that they are in a dangerous cult. All that and more tonight on the Not-So-New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 131 of the Not-So-New 52. I am your host, and we're on Tuesdays now. Hip hop hooray. It's going to continue for the next 2 years, and then just before I end the show, we're going to switch back over to Mondays because leap years, man, they mess everything up. Don't really have much I want to talk about before we get into the comics. There is just one little thing that has nothing to do with anything, but I would highly suggest for anybody who wants to follow along on this show, go ahead and subscribe to DC Universe Infinite, which is the digital reading marketplace. All of these comics, because they're so old, they are digitized. They are free to read with your subscription. Super easy to get to. But the thing I wanted to bring up, and I don't know why I just noticed this, is that every single one of the comics on that app has a little description. It's a little thing. And it seems like it's picked right out of the solicitations where it says find out what Swamp Thing does and this blah, 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 whatever. But they just lie. And I only discovered that this week. And I think it's probably on the back end because obviously the solicitations have to come out well before the comics actually come out. But the one that got me was, I think it was actually this week's issue of Earth 2. In the little DC Universe Infinite blurb, the solicitation for it, it says oh yeah, this, that, and the other thing happened. And then it says something along the lines of I don't know. And then Green Lantern is going to have to do this stuff. Green Lantern's not even in the book. He's not even there. But there it is, just on the blurb. It's just saying and Green Lantern's here. I'm no, he isn't. And I looked through a bunch of other issues just to see how often does this happen? Things I've already read. And it happens a lot. There are a lot of times. And maybe this is just changes from solicitation to print. Maybe the original storyline was tweaked and things were padded or stuff like that. But that is so strange to me now. 10 years removed, they are putting this stuff onto this app and it's just completely wrong. So what I'm really saying here is DC, hire me and I will fix your blurbs on your app because I've actually read these books, whereas clearly no one in your advertising department has. So yeah, anyway, like I said, has nothing to do with anything, but just a little funny thing I found. So, what books do we have coming out this week? Well, in no particular order, we have the following. We have Forever Evil Arkham War, Detective Comics, Action Comics, Batwing, Batman/Superman, Green Lantern, Earth 2, Green Arrow, The Movement, Stormwatch, Phantom Stranger, and Swamp Thing. Of note of those, obviously Forever Evil Arkham War, and Phantom Stranger are all doing their own Forever Evil things. We have Batman Superman is actually an annual where instead of dealing with the crossover that should be going on, they just do something else. They're dealing with Mongol and Warworld stuff. Detective Comics is part of Gothtopia because of course it is. That's actually the final part of that. And I think that's pretty much it. Oh, Stormwatch. That is the final issue of Jim Starlin's run and the second to final issue of the series overall. So be sure to check that out if you have any interest on what the hell was going on in Jim Starlin's run. So yeah, all that's coming up. And like I said, I don't have much more to add. So hit it. Forever Evil number 6, written by Geoff Johns, art by David Finch. So last time we had Batman and Catwoman teaming up with Lex Luthor's whole crew. Deathstroke's involved now, and Batman basically says all right, if we're doing this, I'm team lead, and everyone's just that ain't happening. Also, whatever killed the Crime Syndicate's world is now showing up on this planet because Power Ring's ring is flying around. So all that being said, Batman and Lex are looking over the down Justice League Watchtower, and Batman saying, like, yeah, so we have to essentially break in non-teleportation wise, because if we teleport in, they're immediately going to sense us. So let's go ahead and head in. And it looks like the whole crew is basically saying, all right, we're going to have to go in and take out the crime syndicate. And Batman's whole thing is like, no, the first thing we need to do is go save Dick Grayson. Like, that's number one importance here. And Lex is like, I think we disagree. So we cut over to the crime syndicate. They're staring at the giant tear in the fabric of reality. And they're like, all right, thoughts, people? How do we stop this from happening? And Deathstorm basically chimes in and says, I can stop it. I can fix it. However, I'm going to need to absorb a massive amount of life energy. So we're going to have to kill a whole lot of people. And everyone's like, yeah, all right, that sounds good. Let's do that. Then Owlman gets a call from the Outsider, basically saying, hey, Owlman, you know how you wanted Dick Grayson protected? Here's the thing. He's safe, but Grid has done something real messed up, and we don't see what that is yet. So the entire crew gets closer to the watchtower, and they're looking around ready to be jumped, but there's nobody there. It's completely empty. And they're like, okay, so either A, we somehow managed to sneak in, like, actually correctly here, or B, they're all busy with something else. So let's just take the advantage regardless of what we got. So they make their way in, and Sinestro runs a scan for life forms, and he detects that there are 8. And they're like, wait a minute, hold on. We only counted 7 before. What's this last one they're talking about? So we see what it is that Owlman and them did, and this is also at the same point that Lex and team break into the watchtower. And that is Dick Grayson is being held in place by a machine called the Murder Machine. And it essentially, as we find out later, is a giant bomb that is hooked to his heart rate and also has a timer. So it's going to blow up if Dick Grayson dies or if the timer counts down. So Grid says, like, yeah, Ultraman wanted me to make sure that he was contained, and also Batman wanted to make sure he was safe. Now this is both of them. So at this point, we see that the rest of the team has split up to try to take out the crime syndicate. Black Manta and Captain Cold just immediately kill the Outsider. Specifically, Black Manta and Captain Cold's like, good job, man. One for the team. And they find that hooded figure, the one that's been tied up this whole time. And they're like, who the heck is that guy? Is this guy one of them? Let's do some investigation here. Meanwhile, Batman, Lex, Bizarro, and Catwoman are in Dick Grayson's chamber. They're locked in there because the whole thing's gone on to lockdown. And all of a sudden, the timer starts counting down. And Lex is like, okay. He reasons out, along with Dick Grayson's help, everything that is going on with this bomb. And he's like, all right, let's think of our options here. And Batman's like, regardless, he's making it out of this alive. And Lex is like, yeah, sure, totally. So Black Adam, Deathstroke, and Sinestro are all jumped by the crime syndicate, who just, they know they're in there now, and they just come in and start hauling ass on everybody. Sinestro goes after a larger portion of them because Black Adam's like, I'm taking Ultraman. This is what I need to do to get my honor back. So we cut between these 3 plots throughout the rest of the issue, and what we end up getting is the Black Manta and Captain Cold unmask the hooded figure, and before he can say anything, Johnny Quick and Atomica bust in, and they're like, do not let him say anything. What in the hell is wrong with you? And we see Johnny Quick pins down Captain Cold, takes away his freeze gun, and he's like, this is stupid. You got a freeze gun? How's that going to work? And he's like, you misunderstand my power set, dude. That's not a freeze gun. It's a cold gun. And he's like, what's the difference? And he's like, oh, well, I slow stuff down at the atomic level. And then he says the key word, which is Jingle Bells Batman Smells. It activates the gun and freezes Johnny Quick's leg, to which Captain Cold just kicks it and shatters it, so he is now unable to run. Atomica gets distracted. She leaps in to try to save Johnny, but of course it doesn't work. Meanwhile, we have the plot with the crime syndicate guys, the rest of the team, fighting against Sinestro and Ultraman and all that. They're out fighting in the middle of the area. And as they're fighting, we see this hooded figure finally manages to get a word off, and he says the word Mazas, which transforms him into Shazam, but from the Crime Syndicate universe. And it turns out that this is Alexander Luthor, who is the greatest hero of the Crime Syndicate universe. And he says, "You idiots, I'm going to kill every last one of you and be the greatest hero the world has ever known." So he's clearly a little bit crazy. And that's actually how the issue ends. But the last plot, the Dick Grayson plot, we see that Lex essentially tells Bizarro, "Hey, keep Batman busy. I know how to fix this, and I'm going to stop this bomb from going off." And he just kills Dick Grayson. He's like, "Look, the only way this is going to stop," because I guess I misworded that earlier. It's not linked to his heartbeat in that it goes off when he dies. It's linked to his heartbeat in that it goes off of if it's removed. If his all of a sudden his body is removed from that. So they figure out the only way that it's going to work is to kill him. And Batman is, of course, not okay with this, but Lex goes through with it, and he ends up killing Dick Grayson. Batman then immediately throws on a kryptonite ring, punches Bizarro in the face, and starts beating the crap out of Lex. And Lex is like, "Dude, of course I had a backup plan. It's not too late. We can still save him." But we don't see how that happens because the issue ends. So yeah, next issue is the finale. It's weird when you think about it of what's in this series specifically, because honestly, it's not a lot. Like, the event as a whole, if you look at it across all the tie-ins, everything going on across all the different, like, mini-series and tie-in stuff like that, it definitely has a larger scope to it. But if you read just this specific comic, it's surprisingly very small scope. It's just Batman managed to escape. A couple villains say they want to take out the Crime Syndicate. And then by the time we get to the end of this, like, yeah, that's really all we ever do. We get a couple extra little reveals of, like, Alexander Luthor is here and there's this crack in reality or whatnot. But, like, freeing the Justice League from how they're confined and, like, all the extra stuff going into that, stuff going on around the world, none of that's explored here. So it's strange to me that when I think of this event, I think of this book, but I, in reality, think of everything else that's not in this book. Either way, it's a solid issue. It's a good read. I would say the killing of Dick Grayson kind of loses a little bit of impact because they immediately go back on it. They just immediately say, like, "Don't worry, bro, I got this." I think they should have left him dead before Lex Luthor said, "Don't worry, bro, I got this." But beyond that, the rest of the issue is perfectly fine. I'll give it a 7.5. It's a good issue, but it's definitely the penultimate. I'm looking forward to seeing how we climax here at the end and then set up whatever the next status quo is going to be. Forever Evil Arkham War number 6, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Scot, Eaton. Last issue, Bane got all the Talons back, but Scarecrow pulled a Hail Mary and infected all the Arkhamites with... Why am I blanking on the name? Venom. That's the one. So this is honestly the fastest read I've had in months. So Bane, after his whole fight with the Talons and stuff like that, he comes back. He's bloodied. He's just coming his way back into Blackgate. And he takes like a blowtorch and solders all of his wounds. And he's like, "All right, got to be ready for what's coming up next." And we see that the Talon, William Cobb, is essentially left in charge of Blackgate because Bane has no interest in running the day-to-day stuff. So he's the one who's rehabilitating and getting all of his Talons back into fighting shape, because despite the fact they were all essentially cut in half, 'tis merely a flesh wound. So there's like, yep, so we're all going to take control of the city because Bane's grasp lies beyond Gotham. And so at that point, all of a sudden the alarms start blaring, and all of the Arkhamites, hyped up on Venom, descend upon Blackgate, and they just start screaming, running and fighting. They take out a bunch of the guards, just eyes glowing green and hulked out like crazy. And they continue fighting as best they can, but like the Talons are still holding up on their own, but because they are weakened because of Bane's thing, they aren't able to hold off the fight entirely. So at that point, Bane busts in and he's just like, "You guys don't know how to handle Venom. I had to spend my whole life getting prepared for it. You guys, you're on just a little bit of a high here. You're never going to be able to last this out." So At this point, Man-Bat comes down and grabs Bane and just starts hauling him away. And Scarecrow's just like, all right, we got what we needed. Everyone bail. And everyone just runs away following Man-Bat. So Bane's being carried away. He's like, I'm not going to fight this. I mean, yeah, wherever you want to take me, wherever you want to do this final showdown, I'm down for it. So they drop him in front of Arkham, and he's like, yeah, I probably should have figured that one out. That one's pretty obvious. And the rest of the Arkhamites all show up in helicopters, and everybody all at once just piles onto Bane's, and Bane just immediately tears through them. He's just like, there is a time limit to like how long the Venom can work for before you need to re-up, and no matter what, you guys are definitely about to hit the end of your limit, so bring it on. And we get multiple pages here of him just tearing through everybody. He like steals Mr. Freeze's gun and starts freezing people willy-nilly. He's just like, I have defeated all of you and you will kneel before Bane. And at this point he hears someone clapping off to the side, and Penguin shows up, and he's just like, hey man, great job, you took out the Arkhamites, that's fantastic. I'm here to give you something. And he passes over a thing, we don't see what yet, to Bane, and he's just like, yeah, so here's the thing, there's a power vacuum, I am totally willing to step into that and do whatever, but I am willing to give you whatever you want for that, just say the word. And Bane says, dude, you can have all of Gotham except for one part. I want one district for myself, and you make sure I never see any of the Arkhamites ever again. He's like, done and done, can do. So we see Bane is taking a bunch of military gear that Penguin handed him. And long story short, he basically says, yeah. I know I said I was going to take over the world and leave Gotham behind, but like, I kind of really want Gotham. It's kind of a thing I've been wanting for a while now. So he puts on this military gear, and then he puts on his big brown puffy jacket. And it is literally the exact costume from Dark Knight Rises, save for the mask. The mask is still a luchador. So he stands up and he's like, finally, Gotham City is mine. And that's where it ends. That's Arkham War, everybody. There is one more. There is a one shot that comes out after Forever Evil, basically showing what happens when Batman shows back up. But you remember when Gordon and like one of the detectives had to get all the people out of Blackgate? Do you remember how that was a plot point that took up like almost a whole issue at one point? Because I don't think the book did. Yeah, no, I get what this book is doing. I get the focus on like, oh yeah, it's a war for Gotham's soul, and Bane ends up coming out the victor. It's a real good puff piece for Bane, don't get me wrong, but like, I think that this book may be the most unnecessary out of the Forever Evil books. It felt to me like this book was solely written for the fact of Batman sells, but Forever Evil is a Justice League event. How do we get something that is specifically Batman out of this? And this is what they came up with. And the hard part of that is that Batman is relegated to the Forever Evil book proper. Which means that this is essentially the Sonyverse, where you're only allowed to play with the villains and you can't actually involve Spider-Man, you know? So yeah, I don't know. It's not a bad time overall. I think I kept on hoping it was going to end up being more than it was. And in the end, all it really seemed to do was say, hey, Dark Knight Rises came out like a year ago prior to this coming out, maybe two. Let's try to get Bane more aligned with that. Let's see if we can get him into the movie sort of thing, the way that all those new comic readers envision him. Frankly, I don't think that's worth it. So yeah, I'm going to say this one is... a 6 sounds too low, so I'll give it a 6.5, but a 7 is definitely too high. So yeah, 6.5 for this. I like I said, I just kept wanting more from this, and I know that we're going to get the one shot that's going to put all the pieces back to where they're supposed to be, but like... yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I wanted from this, but I wanted more. Phantom Stranger number 17, written by J.M. DeMatteis, art by Fernando Blanco. So this is the next part of Forever Evil Blight. And last time, I mean the time before that, honestly, because last time has nothing to do with this. Pandora, Phantom Stranger, and Cassandra Kraft managed to escape the Doom Machine thing that was going on. And then they went to go get help, and they ran into Spectre because Spectre doesn't like Phantom Stranger. So we pick up with Spectre saying that he doesn't like Phantom Stranger, and he picks him up and he just starts like squeezing him real tight, and he's just like, "Oh, geez, I might actually die here. This is crazy." So then Pandora throws a knife into Spectre's hand, which manages to stop it. And before Phantom Stranger even hits the ground, he takes in all of the energy from like Spectre, like he's able to drain energy from him and grows just as large as Spectre. And he's like, I know I should sit here and try to talk it out and explain to Spectre what it is we're trying to do, but I hate him so much. And he just punches Spectre in the face and just sends him flying across this like baseball field that they're on. So at that point, Cassandra Kraft chimes in. She's just like, guys, talk about your differences, settle them. Like, we're not going to get anywhere punching each other. And Phantom Stranger's like, who are you, Cassandra Kraft? Because I feel something for you, you know? So Spectre, he doesn't care. He's about to charge in again, which is where we get the Spirit of Redemption, the newly made Christopher from before. And he comes down holding God in the form of the dog. And he's like, Spectre, that's enough. Don't charge in blindly. I need someone to be a good teacher for me. And Phantom Stranger's like, I'm sorry, you want Spectre, the Spirit of Vengeance, to be the teacher for the Spirit of Redemption? That's stupid. You're stupid. And God chimes in like, I mean, if anybody knows anything about redemption, it's you, Phantom Stranger. Do you want the job of teaching Chris? And he's just like, you know what? I see your bait. I'm not taking it. I from this moment on, I am done listening to the word of God. I will follow my own conscience instead. Come on, guys, let's go. And that's when God chimes in. He's like, did you ever think that maybe the voice inside your head is God? Like, do you ever think maybe that's what a conscience is? Bye, stranger. And before they go, Chris is the spirit, sends out two little red bird things that go into the chests of Cassandra Kraft and Phantom Stranger. And he's like, all at once, I feel her. She's amazing. She's incredible. And then suddenly it fades away and I like forget all about it. But like, who are you, Cassandra Kraft? So they start making googly eyes at each other. Pandora's like, guys, we got stuff to do. We got to go rescue. They're in like an atom bomb. We got to go deal with that. So Stranger teleports everybody to Vegas, specifically the casino/hotel that the Sons of Trigon run, that we saw all the way back in like issue 5. And Pandora's like, what are we doing here? He's just like, I'm here to get some help. By the way, this place is full of demons. Just adjust your vision and you can see it. So they make their way into an elevator. And when they get to whatever floor they need to be, they meet up with the Sons of Trigon. And the Sons are just like, hey, Phantom Stranger, last time you were here, you cheated us in a poker game and humiliated us. So give us one good reason why we shouldn't kill you. And he's like, well, I've come here to ask for your help. And he's just like, that's hilarious. That's actually funny as hell. And then Phantom Stranger loses his temper and he takes all the girls that these guys have in the room and just throws them to the wind, all of them to return back to their home of origin. And the demons are like, did you think that was going to get us to like you? Because like, we really enjoyed those women. So at that point, Phantom Stranger throws up a big projection thing showing Felix Faust and the machine and all that. And he's like, this is what's going on. It's going to ruin all magical energy, period. And the demons are like, why do we care? And it's like, oh, well, this much magic is not only going to disrupt Earth, it's also going to mess up the underworlds, which means you guys will be out of a job as well. And he's just like, all right, well, you want us to work with you, you got to replace the women. I see Cassandra Kraft here is looking pretty sexy. And Phantom Stranger's like, you don't touch her. For some reason, I really like her. Like a lot. And I'm still dealing with those feelings. And the demon guy's like, I wasn't actually gonna. She's blind. What do I want damaged goods for? And so he then says the actual deal is for Phantom Stranger's coin necklace around his neck. He's just like, that stuff comes with some serious cosmic power. Give that to me. And not only that, you'll be free of your burden. So like, that's a good deal, right? And Phantom Stranger's like, nah, we're not doing that. And they just turn to walk away. And that's where the Sons of Trigon then stop them at the door, and we get a fight scene, which essentially equates to Pandora cuts their heads off, and then they start running to the exit. A bunch of other demons cut off the way for them there. And it seems like there's no escape until Cassandra Kraft is like, don't worry, I got this. And she just blows a hole all the way down to the ground floor of this hotel. And Phantom Stranger just says, who are you, Cassandra Kraft? So powerful. And it feels like super familiar. So they crash down on the ground floor. Sons of Trigon walk up and they're just like, hey, this place actually does have like real humans here. And there's a lot of collateral damage if we choose to just blow this place up. So I know that's against your moral code. So how about we like talk and you can give me your necklace? And Phantom Stranger's like, nope, not going to happen. So finally the demon starts bringing down the whole house. He's like, Jesus, all right, I didn't think you'd do it. Fine, whatever, deal. So he passes over his necklace. The main one, I forget his name. He puts it on, and his brothers are like, oh, God, that's a lot of power. Maybe we should fight him. And he's like, don't even think about it. He's like, all right, fair enough. So he puts it on, and then immediately his face just falls, and he crawls down to his knees, and he's like, oh, my God. The burden you hold, Phantom Stranger, it's too much. I can't bear it. No hell I could create could ever compare to this. Here, take it back. We'll help you, Jesus. And so he hands it back, and he's just like, yeah, no. Like, I'm super emo like that. Don't mess with me. So the three Sons of Trigon agree to help, and everyone flies out of Vegas, and they just completely like evaporate their hotel. What happened to the people inside? It doesn't say, but like the hotel's gone, and now they're willing to help out. We continue in Constantine next week. So it's fine. It was okay. The first part felt a lot more unnecessary than the second part. I do love the recurring thing of Phantom Stranger just being like, I don't know what it is about you, Cassandra Kraft, but I really like you. And because it just keeps coming back. I do think this is the last month for this book. I think it wraps up in maybe Justice League Dark. So looking forward to seeing how it wraps up. But yeah, it's an okay issue. I don't know how better to say it. It does what Phantom Stranger always tends to do, which is cuts back on the fights and gets more like philosophical and talky about it. Like it's much more about changing perspectives than it is actually fighting, and having the Son of Trigon just put on this necklace and immediately be like, oh God, you're so emo. I love it. I kind of enjoy that as a plot point. So I'm going to give this one just a flat 7. We'll see how it continues on. This definitely feels like it's skippable if you're just reading for the whole event, because it's just saying like, here's how we get more people involved. But it's a good read regardless. Batman Superman Annual Number 1, written by Greg Pak, art by Jay Lee, Kenneth Rocafort, and Philip Tan. So, currently in Batman Superman, we've got the world's finest crossover going on with First Contact. This says, screw that, I've still got more stories I want to tell with Mongol. So, if you remember, Mongol was he was taken care of, he was defeated in the previous arc. This issue shows that he was thrown into the Phantom Zone by Superman, and there he will stay. And Batman's like, you kind of did a whole judge, jury, executioner thing there, huh? And he's like, it's the only way to take care of Mongol. I don't know what you want me to say. And Batman's like, talking to himself, he's just like, I would have done the same thing, but like, I gotta make sure he is more moral than that. And Superman's like, Batman just doesn't get it. I have to make tough calls sometime. So we see them returning to their own cities of origin, and they're all taking care of what they need to take care of. And then all of a sudden, a giant alien spaceship shows up in the sky. When I say giant, I mean planet-sized. It's Warworld. Warworld shows up in the skies. It starts wrecking the atmosphere and causing all these crazy things going on. Superman immediately zooms up, and like NASA's like, he doesn't represent Earth. Like he doesn't have the government approval. And everyone's like, well, he's Superman. Who's going to tell him no? So he goes up, immediately is hit with like a space laser. And as he's recovering, stepping up is Jochi, who is the son of Mongol. And he's like, hey, you're Superman. You beat my dad. Cool. Let's have a talk here, because he fell in battle, and therefore me as his son, I have taken his place, and now I am claiming that your planet must pay for that. So Superman's like, okay, I get it, warrior culture, sure, but like that ain't gonna fly. So he starts trying to stop like the space laser and all that, and Superman basically says like, I'll give you 2 minutes to get the hell out of here. And Jochi's like, okay, you want to save this planet so badly? You and Batman, because I know Batman was a part of that as well, you both bring your warrior clans to Warworld and we will settle this. I just want to meet your families. 2 members of your clan, including yourself. So see you tomorrow. So we see Batman comes up to Clark as he's just kind of like relaxing. He's just like, you made an ultimatum with an alien warlord? He's like, how could you have possibly heard that? And he's like, you left your comm on. He's like, no, I didn't. He's like, okay, I can hack into your comm. Regardless, we got to go up there and bring people. That's a tribute demand. This is a sacrifice. And he's like, maybe we can figure this out. Maybe there's a way that we can not get killed. So they both try to figure out who they're going to invite. Superman immediately goes to Supergirl, and they're like saving a bridge from being attacked by a giant octopus. Wonder Woman's there too. And she's just like, hey, yeah, I'm as strong as you, cousin. I'll totally come in and help you out here. Meanwhile, Wonder Woman's just like, and what about me? I may as well be a part of your clan now. After all, we're dating. And Superman's like, look, you are so much stronger than me, and you know everything about warrior culture. However, this book is Batman, Superman. Not Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. The real reason is we need you here on Earth to protect it so that when Batman and I are gone, part of the Trinity is still here. And she's like, fine, I guess. So at that point, Batman gets in contact with Red Hood, who is going around slashing people with his energy swords. And he's like, I'm not killing them. Don't get on me. He's like, hey, you're not going to hear anything from me. Look, I actually need your brutality, and I need it up in space. And he's like, all right, I'm listening. So they meet up the next day, and Superman's like, hey, you only brought one. I brought Steel. Steel's here too. Where's your other one? And Batgirl pops in. She's like, here I am. And her and Steel get to talking, and they say like, yeah, we're techies, and we've got, like, she's got special memory, so we're going to go up on the ship. We're going to see if we can hack it in some way, and we're going to disable Warworld's guns. That's the plan. So Batman then stops, and he looks at Batgirl and Red Hood and just like, you guys, you know, you both have suffered so much before in Killing Joke and Death in the Family specifically. I need you guys to know that this is dangerous. You might not come back. And Red Hood's like, dude, that's literally everything we do. We go out and fight supervillains. You seriously think that this is the dangerous part? No wonder we get hurt so often. And Superman can hear Batman's heartbeat, and he's just like, oh, he pissed. So at that point, Crypto shows up and just like tackles Clark in the sky. And it's like, wait a minute, Crypto, where'd he come from? And he's like, oh, I left him with Superboy. It's like, oh, right, Superboy died. Oops. So now Crypto's here as well. So we all go up to Warworld, and they land and are immediately greeted by like some space guard who hands them alien translators to put into their ears. And immediately he's just like, you must be the Earthlings, come for the sacrifice. And Kara's like, oh, sacrifice, cool. I'm hoping that's just a mistranslation. So they all go over to the Warworld like center stage, and turns out that Jochi is a little bit busy because with Mongol gone, a bunch of people started making a claim for the throne, and therefore Warworld is currently undergoing a tournament of fighters to see who is going to be the head of Warworld. And Jochi ends up being one of the very few people who is okay with not incinerating the planet Earth. So if anybody else wins this tournament, Earth is screwed. And that's the point where Jochi is about to get crushed. Red Hood sees this, and he just leaps in, and he provides a little bit of cover fire for Jochi, who then snaps his opponent's neck. And everyone's like, whoa, that's cheating. He's not part of your clan. And that's when Batman jumps in, and he's like, actually, I killed Mongol, therefore I am able to take his place, and I claim Jochi is a member of the Batman clan. And using that technicality, it allows the Bat family and Jochi to fight as one. And Batgirl's just like, cool, I'm going to go try to hack some stuff. Steel, come on with me. And we'll just use Crypto as our third. So we see them doing that. Superman and them want to stay out of the tournament because they're like, okay, that's, you know, we can't get involved. It's going to be a problem here. But then they realize that the they can double their odds of winning if like Kryptonians are involved. So it's definitely worth them getting in on the fight as well. So the tournament continues. Steel and Batgirl try making headway. Batgirl keeps on suggesting, let's just blow it all up, to which Steel says, we can figure this out. It's not going to be a problem. So as the fight continues on, Red Hood actually kind of like buddies up with Jochi. He's just like, I like you, man. You're brutal. It's a good way of doing things here. And Batman, instead of killing the opponents, just throws them off the side of the stage. And Red Hood, or Jochi, chews him out for it. He's just like, dude, like that's they don't have the ability to change. They are literally here to try to kill us. Like, you need to kill them. And Red Hood's like, that's what I've been saying. And Batman's like, no, I'm going to save them. So the tournament continues, and essentially it gets down to 2 teams remaining, which is, of course, just Superman's team and Batman's team. And that's where they are told, okay, going into this last round, the rules change a bit. You gotta kill. It's not a matter of just like, oh, you spare them. You gotta kill them. And if we feel like you guys are pulling your punches, we're going to immediately disqualify both of you, and then the world's going to blow up. So that's going to happen. And Batman and Superman step aside. They talk about it, just be like, look, there are too many innocent lives at stake. We really have to fight each other. Like, go all out. Do not hold back. We're going to do what we have to do here. So next day, the fight starts. Batman pulls out a piece of kryptonite, and they're kind of just standing off for a second, but then Jochi just runs in and punches Superman in the chest, and he's like, all right, well, I guess that's one way to start it. So Krypto comes in, starts biting Jochi. Red Hood's fighting against Kara because she has a sword now too, and then it's Batman v Superman. And as the fight is going on, Clark actually gets knocked down because of the kryptonite, and Batman goes to throw like a face-crunching punch, but he punches right next to Superman's head. And that's when the alien people are like, you pulled your punch. That's it. Eliminated, disqualified. We're burning up the planet. And so Jochi just leaps out of the rink and cuts off the judge's head. And he's just like, hey, I'm taking this planet back through strength and victory. Like, I'm claiming this. And I definitely won the tournament. So who's going to argue with me? And I am going to use my first act to show the ultimate strength. And that strength is mercy. I will show mercy to the planet Earth and allow them to live. And everyone out in the audience is like, that's stupid. Kill you. I hate you. And they all just come rushing at Jochi. So at this point, being completely out of time, Steel goes with Batgirl's idea. They just blow up the guns. So there's no way for them to attack Warworld anymore. And in fact, they're blowing up the core of the planet. So it's already going to kind of like self-destruct. So Kryptonians get all of Batman's team off as best they can, but Batman's refusing to go. He's like, Jochi, I can save you. These people, they're going to tear you apart. And Jochi's like, it's my people. It's my planet. This is my thing. I'm not going to run away from my world any more than you would run away from yours. Peace. And so he cuts the rope that Batman was holding onto him for. He falls into the horde of his angry people, and Batman just screams out, oh, I'm sorry. So the planet's actually crashing down to Earth. And it's going to hit the Antarctic, but before it lands, like right before it lands, Superman activates the Phantom Zone projector and sends the entirety of Warworld into the Phantom Zone. And Batman's like, dude, that's a lot. Like, that's a really big ask for me. And he's just like, look, I had to do it. It was a big enough threat. It's something that needed to happen. And Batman's like, yeah, you and your power. Jesus, man, that's crazy. So at that point, Superman says, like, hey, look, I'm sorry about Jochi. Like, I know what it's like to lose someone, like Superboy. And Batman's like, you don't know the half of it, as he thinks about Robin. So the epilogue here is Jochi and Warworld are floating through the Phantom Zone. And he's just like, oh, Father, these people challenged me and I defeated them all in combat. I am truly their leader. And that's where Mongol comes up and just stabs his own son and says, nah, man, I'm the leader still. So Mongol's still alive and he's retaken Warworld in the Phantom Zone. Okay, sure. Good enough. I like the messaging of this. It's a whole thing about like whether or not people can change. I kind of glossed over it, but you see Jochi changing from like this merciless, wanting to follow his father's footsteps, to being a lot more kind-hearted. But then it kind of undercuts it with the whole he gets killed anyway thing. So I don't know if they're saying brutality is necessary. I think that's kind of the moral there, which is weird. Beyond that, it looks great. I think there's no real jarring art style changes. You can definitely tell there is a difference between like certain panels. I think the biggest one that stands out is Jay Lee. But Kenneth Rocafort and Philip Tan do a pretty good job together. So I'm going to say this is I'll give it the 8. It's a low 8, but I do think it deserves it. I think it is actually a very good issue, and I would say check it out sometime. It's just a little like, if you're interested in War World or even a Bat Family and Super Family team up. It's a good job at balancing the two sides pretty equally there. Detective Comics number 29, written by John Layman, art by Aaron Lopresti. This is the final part of Gothtopia, and oh boy. So, last issue, Poison Ivy and Batman broke out of Arkham because they're the only ones who see Gotham for how it really is, man. And then Scarecrow sicked the whole Bat family on the two of them. So, this issue picks up after the fight is done, and Batman has been beaten into submission and is now one of Scarecrow's obedient drones. And he's like, oh, Batman, this is only the start of my plan. So Scarecrow turns to his other doctors, Professor Pig and Mr. Freeze and all that, and basically says like, all right, tonight, while the city is sleeping, we're gonna go full scale on the Nightmare Machine. We're gonna turn all of Gotham into this fear state. It's gonna be great. And Mr. Freeze and Merrymaker, I want you two to take Batman, and Batman will lead you to all the places that we can get the most fear out. And he's just like, are you sure? I mean, is he obedient, or did he even put up a fight? And then we flash back to the fight, and we see Batman's side of it, where he's like, I was easily gonna win, and then Scarecrow took Catwoman hostage and said, like, I'll kill her if you don't cooperate. He's like, how do you want me to cooperate? And then he just gets blasted with this gas. But because he took Poison Ivy's antidote, while it does affect him slightly, he's able to fight off the most of it. We actually see how his fear toxin works, which is first you feel a burning, then you get hit with like all the basic fears like snakes and spiders, and then it starts playing on your like specific terrors, the things that really hit you personally. And he goes through it, but then he comes out of it because he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. But he decides to keep playing the act. So Scarecrow sits up and be like, you belong to me now. And Poison Ivy's like, you got to fight it, Batman. But then Scarecrow's like, screw you, Poison Ivy. And he instructs Batman to backhand Poison Ivy, which he does. And just like, I got to keep up this act for as long as possible so I can get the full plan. So at this point, Scarecrow says, I'm going to change your outfit. And it's the exact same. It gives him a Batman outfit, but it's got like the Scarecrow stitching along it, like the sewing needle stuff. So extra. Anyway, so he says like, yeah, Batman's going to take you, and I want you to test him. I want you to force him to apply the drug himself, so that way he's the one who's causing fear in Gotham. And so Merrymaker says, all right, let's go, Batman. And Batman says, sure, but let's go this way instead. And he just starts leading, sorry, it's not Mr. Freeze, Professor Pig and Merrymaker. And they go up to this random ass apartment where this guy's asleep. And Batman gives him a dose of the nightmare juice. And when he wakes up, he sees Batman in this horrific nightmare style. And after a few hours, they all meet back up again. And Merrymaker's like, dude, Batman was like terrorizing everybody. It was awesome. He's totally under our control. And look how much concentrated fear stuff we got out of them. And they loaded up into a giant fear juice machine. And we see that Scarecrow's loaded up a bunch of blimps with this stuff. All of their internal gas is this fear toxin. And so they're going to just pop them all over Gotham. That's the plan. And so we see, or maybe they're not going to pop them. They're just going to dispense stuff. But anyway, we see that Batman is like, cool, I got the whole plan here. Turns out what he was actually doing was leading them to the apartments of known recurring criminals and giving them this fear gas so that way, when they came out of this whole thing, they would have deep-seated nightmares about Batman and therefore would not commit crime ever again. Seems a bit extra, but he did it. And then also, when he handed over the fear goo, turns out there was some antidote mixed up in there as well. So anything loaded up into these blimps, the antidote should be mixed in, and therefore everyone should be safe. So blimps go off. Blimps explode, and everyone's like, what? This isn't supposed to happen. But then everyone suddenly comes to clarity. Catwoman slashes Scarecrow's face. The rest of the family come in and start fighting the rest of the rogues. And yeah, everyone's knocked out. But then as they're loading Scarecrow in the van going to Arkham, he causes another explosion of fear toxin. He's just like, you really think this is the end of it, Batman? I still got more tricks up my sleeve. I'm gonna rule this city. I control fear. And Batman gets stabbed in the stomach, like full tilt by Scarecrow. He's got like claws and stuff, and he ends up killing Batman. And Scarecrow's like, Gotham is mine. You hear that? I'm the one who rules Gotham. And then we see Crane out of Scarecrow costume in a padded cell, and he's just mumbling to himself, it's the end of Batman forever. And he's just like, yeah, I killed Batman. I did it. I'm ruling Gotham. And Batman's like, yeah, I gave him his own contentment serum, the stuff that everybody else had. He's going to think that everything's super cool and groovy, but like eventually he'll figure it out because he's so used to his own serums. And we'll deal with that when he comes back to reality. So we get a little epilogue here sometime later where Catwoman meets up with Batman on a rooftop, and she's just like, hey, I wanted to talk about Gothopia. And more importantly, you and I were like a thing. Like, we made out a lot. Do you remember that? Because I definitely remember that. And he's like, I don't remember anything like that. All I know is that Gotham is safe, and that's the only thing I need in my life. Nothing else. I gotta go. And then he just hops on his plane and leaves. So, final page is just him swinging into punch Clayface, saying, I'm always ready, because this is the last issue for John Layman. And I guess he wanted to go out on a bang. So the core Gothopia story, the 3 issues in Detective Comics, I think is fine. I'd say it's even like good. I think wrapping it up so succinctly at the end kind of feels a little bit for me. Turning this into an event, turning this into a crossover where multiple other books are doing stuff with it, I think it's the second biggest misstep for DC in the New 52 thus far. I'm going to say the first biggest misstep is somewhere around the idea of Scott Lobdell has multiple books, but this is a close contender for that. It's so hard for me to separate this book specifically out from the event as a whole. I think this book was fine. It wasn't great. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't like, oh, it's the end of his run. He's redefining Batman, or like he's really saying what he meant to say this whole time. I don't think this thing does anything nearly as complicated. This entire bit has basically just been like, the villains of Gotham have their own thing going on, and Batman's just there to stop them. It's more about the villains and their machinations than it is Batman himself. So ending it on this thing of like, can Batman find love with Catwoman? That's a Tom King thing. We'll get to that. But here, I think it's just kind of a, all right, why not? So I'm going to give this one just a flat 7. I did like a lot of John Layman's run, but Gothopia just wasn't the proper way to end it. Batwing number 29, written by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Eduardo Pansica. So we got in the middle of this whole arc where not only now has Tamara been taken hostage, but we also have Tiffany and this whole thing with Russell, who was an old classmate of Batwing. It's getting involved. So we open up with a whole bunch of drug dealers and stuff like that being strung up on a Gotham bridge, and immediately Batman's just like, this was Batwing. He's going out of control. And Alfred's just like, dude, he has intense pain going on and you're not seeing things clearly because of your connection with the Fox family. And Batman's like, I know what he's doing, Alfred. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to deal with this because, like, we have no leads as to who kidnapped both of the Fox girls right now. And, like, Batman's doing the whole, like, slamming his fists on the table thing. He's just like, I have a conscience, Alfred, damn it. So he takes off and he's saying, like, yeah, I'm going to go talk to Batwing. I'm going to see what I can do. So cutting over to an amusement park, we see a bunch of teenagers hanging out, just drinking and having a good time. And as they go deeper into this one condemned ride, we see Tamara Fox is there, and she is bloodied up, beaten, and it looks like she's strung out on some kind of drug. But they recognize her, and they call the hospital. And we cut ahead to the doctors basically talking to Lucius and his family and basically saying, hey, your daughter, how long has she been using heavy drugs? And they're just like, what? She hasn't used any heavy drugs. She's a straight A student. She would never do something like that. And he's just like, okay, well, there's this drug out on the market. It's called like crystal death or snake bite, depending on who you're talking to. And Luke's is like, yeah, we see that stuff on the news. What are you saying? It's just like, look, maybe she was given the drug by someone else, but like, she has brain damage. She has taken so much of this drug that she is essentially a vegetable. So she's never going to be able to live on her own again. I'm so very sorry. And at this point, Luke, tears in his eyes, just storms out of the room. Bruce shows up as Bruce, and he's like, Luke, hey, I wanted to talk to you. And he just pushes past him. And that's where Batwing then goes out to the amusement park where they were found. There's now a whole police investigation. And Batwing does this whole, like, brooding thing. He's just like, these police, they don't even know what they're looking for. I got special sensors and stuff. I'm going to find out who did this. And he sees in the ride, there's a secret wall that has a secret, like, button to press. And so he pushes it and opens up this staircase behind it. And the wall closes immediately behind him. And he's like, all right, let's go see what this is. And he takes, like, 3 steps forward. And he comes out to the Gotham Underground, this huge, like, city built in the caverns beneath Gotham. And he's like, I'm sorry, what? This is down here? So meanwhile, upstairs, Lucius Fox is just grabbing hold of Bruce's collar. And he's just like, I want my kids back. I want my daughter back. You got to help me, man. And he tells Bruce, like, you get Batman to find my other daughter before this same thing happens to her. They have my child. And Bruce takes that pretty hard. So over in the Gotham Underground, there is a woman protecting her child. We see this gang all wearing like Egyptian headdresses. They say Anubis requires all the males to wear the mask of Anubis, and your son is not in compliance. So or give us your son and we're going to put the mask on him. And she says, like, no, I'm not going to do it. And they take the mother and they throw her off the railing down to the levels below. Batwing comes in, swoops her, saves her, and then starts beating up the Anubis guys. And as soon as he's got all of them down, he grabs one by the collar and be like, have you seen this girl? Where is she? And he's like, I've never seen this girl at all. And he flips him over, is about to break his arm. And he's just like, do it, go ahead, break my arm. And Batman's like, okay, and snaps his arm in half. And then he shows the girl again, just being like, seriously, tell me where it is. And he basically calls him out like, you're from Gotham above, aren't you? You have no idea how the underworld goes. This is, you can't handle it down here. And he's like, yeah, try me. And he's like, okay. And so then Batwing looks up and just dozens of people all wearing these Anubis masks are like, kill him. So they all leap down. Batwing starts trying to beat his way through all of them. He's still just in awe that this entire city is down here. He's like, seriously, how is no one talking about the Gotham Underground? This is insane that this is like just allowed to be down here. And finally, Batwing gets a rope tied around him. It disables his wings. So he goes crashing down into the waters below. And he's unable to escape as this giant mutant fish creature comes up and seems as though it's going to devour him. And that is where the issue ends. I feel like this is a lesson in saying so much without saying anything at all. Like, don't get me wrong, there's 2 emotional beats here. Tamara is revealed that she's going to be a vegetable, and then Lucius telling Bruce, like, Batman needs to find my kid. Like, that needs to happen now. Fine moments, great moments. Everything else that surrounds it feels like just we're padding out the length of this. It doesn't feel like we're actually doing anything. And I know that modern comics are very decompressed comparatively, but like I've read decompressed comics. This isn't decompressed. This is just like pretending like you're moving the story forward while not actually doing it. The only thing that changes is he's aware that the Gotham Underground exists. But like as an audience member, nothing's changed. We already knew about the Gotham Underground. We already revealed that. Nothing changes for us as an audience. So I'd like this to do a bit more, a bit faster, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. All in all, I'd say this is probably a... kind of just feels like a 6, honestly. It feels bad because it does have those like two moments that I think are really solid, but the rest of it just doesn't make up for that. So yeah, giving it a 6. Action Comics number 29, written by Greg Pak, art by Aaron Kuder. So last issue we had a whole big fight to get Superman and Co. out of this underground civilization with this magic sphere that gives off energy. And then turns out the little rat creatures that they brought with them are super deadly, and then Superman got attacked by a phantom knife. Look, it's not going to make sense unless you watch it. So we open with Lana blasting this phantom soldier guy, ghost soldier, and just zapping him with like an electricity gun, and Superman slowly trying to recover from his knife through his chest. He's like, look, I'm healing. I can do this. I just got to focus. I can figure all this out. And he looks around at everything going on. He sees the rat creatures are under the yellow sun expanding into these horrific looking monsters. And he recognizes like, look, they have no control over this. So I can't kill them. They're not like evil by design. I just have to return them back to the underground. And Baka comes in trying to stomp on one of them, and Superman's like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. They need to be saved. And Baka's like, okay. But then all of a sudden, Lana's men start opening fire. The like people she was working with, and they start firing at the rat creatures. Lana tells them to stand down, but Superman's like, crap. All right. Let me handle this. And he hits the ground as hard as he can, causes a fissure that separates the two of them apart. And he's like, okay, there's a lot of moving parts here, but I can do this. I can save everybody. And that's when the rats start having their heads freaking decapitated. And we see that it's Ghost Soldier coming in. And he's like, are you all right, Miss Lane? And Lana's just like, oh, God, what did you do? Because at that point, Superman looks at all of the blood, all of these creatures who then transform back into the little cutesy forms. And he's just like, dude, I could have saved everyone. And Ghost Soldier's like, seriously? You think you could have saved everyone there? Really? And his eyes glowing red, just like, yes. And he starts attacking Ghost Soldier. Obviously, he's just punching at air because there's no way to land a hit on him. But in tricking him to thinking that he was only fighting angry, he gets an opening on Ghost Soldier and manages to super freeze him. He uses his cold breath to freeze Ghost Soldier in place and down to like the molecular level. So he reaches into the ice block and pulls off Ghost Soldier's visor. And he's like, you say you're a soldier, which means you're taking orders. Let's see from who. And he puts on the visor. And there's a little heads-up display back to HQ. And all the guys inside are like, Jesus, he can see us. Shut off that camera, man. Shut it down. We don't want him seeing it. Code black. And then everything suddenly goes dark. And Lana chimes in like, you good, man? And he's just like, yeah, we're good. I know who it is. So he says he's going to shut them down. He tells Lana, look, I'm going to go deal with that. I need you to watch Baka for a minute. He trusts you. Give me a second, okay? And Lana starts like talking back to him, just being like, what? No, I want to go with you. This is too dangerous for you to go alone. And he's really, really upset about all this. And Lana recognizes that and is like, hey, you're acting like weird. Are you okay? And Superman mentally is just like, look, you keep thinking that I'm like this kid who's like too scared of his own powers, but like things have changed, and yet I still haven't changed at all. I still get upset when things go wrong like that. So at that point, there's a rumble underground, and the Uker, the beast lord of the subterranean place, he comes up and he's just like, hey, guys, the creatures that you freed, the little rat things, they turned into monsters. Oh, never mind. Looks like you figured that out. You killed them. Good for you. And he's like, no, I didn't kill him. I was trying to help him. And he's just like, whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm here for Baka. And Superman's just like, no, you can't take Baka. I'm not going to do that. It's not how it works. And then all of a sudden, the U.S. military, they've launched drones that have missiles on them, and they just start flying in here. And Superman's like, oh my God, everything just went after another. Lana, get your guys like at least 2 miles away from here. You got 5 minutes to do it. There's missiles coming in. And she's just like, what? No, stop telling me what to do. And Clark just shuts her down, just like, Lana, go. And it's just immediately Lana's like, I don't like that tone of voice, sir, but I understand that you're having a tough time, so I'm going to go. So everyone loads up. Superman goes over to Baka and just like, I don't want to do this. Hey, man, I know I promised that I'd keep you safe and I wouldn't send you back home, but like, you are a kaiju and the U.S. military doesn't like that. You're not going to be safe up here. You're going to be hunted. You need to go back with your people. And Baka transforms back down to his little boy form, and he doesn't meet eyes with Superman. He just looks sad the whole time, and Superman's like, this is tearing my heart out. And he looks over at the Beast Lord, and he's like, if you do anything to this kid, I swear to God. And Beast Lord's just like, dude, I'm not going to do anything to him. That's our crown prince. Like, of course he's going to be treated well. We just want him returned back. And immediately Lana's just like, I'm sorry, he's a prince? And the thing is, the princess is like, yeah, totally. He's our treasure in our future. We're gonna be cool. But Baka's still upset. He doesn't want to do that, and he never looks back as he's brought back down into the underground. So Superman picks up a massive boulder, and he sets it down onto the entrance of the subterranean thing. And he's like, cool, they're 2 miles down. They're safe. The missiles aren't going to be able to reach them. But I can still hear him crying down there. And that's where Superman then just goes up, starts heat visioning all the missiles coming in, makes sure all of them are taken out. Lana's hiding for cover. And as all the missiles are finally done, Superman comes back and just like, hey, are you cool? Are you all right? And Lana's like, yeah, but like the orb cracked. And it's the light that it was given off. The energy is starting to fade. And we see inside of it is like the soul of one of those rat creatures, which then just starts fading into nothingness. And it like, it dies pretty much. And so Superman and Lana share a look. Superman apologizes, and she's just like, that's the 3rd time you said that today. And he's like, no, that's the 5th time I've said that today. And Clark's just not okay. And Lana recognizes that, being like, look, we lost a lot of stuff today. Are you doing all right? And he's just like, no, but I've got an idea as to how we can make things all right. And he just immediately starts zooming towards where Ghost Soldier's orders were coming from. And immediately we cuts inside the tower control. And they're like, crap, Superman's coming here. He's going to kill us, man. We're all dead. And we cut to the woman in charge who says, guys, don't worry about it. He knows nothing of our ways. Nothing can prepare him for the Harrow. I guess that's her name. I don't know. But regardless, that's where the trade ends. That's a downer ending. I like the idea of Superman not being able to do everything. Just one thing piling onto another over and over again, and he just has to make concessions. And they're not concessions that are inherently like evil. It's not him like going against this moral code, but like it's him not doing everything that he wants to do. And he still saves everybody inherently. That's still his number one goal. But like he had to give Baka back up to the like underground. And like some of those rat creatures, yeah, they ended up dying. It's not that he like was unable, like he sentenced them to death or anything, but he was unable to save them. I like that. And if that's the direction Greg Pak's going to take here in fleshing out Superman, giving him this deeper idea of like, no, there's always a way, and finding that because of the events that happened here, I'm down for it. I really want to see that played out. So yeah, overall, I think this is a really good capper of an issue. It's a very emotional one. I'm going to give this one an 8. I really enjoy it. And it gives me a lot of hope for Greg Pak's run, because God knows Action Comics has been very hit or miss over its entire run time. So yeah, see what comes out next time. Green Lantern number 29, written by Robert Venditti, art by Billy Tan and Martin Coccola. So, last issue we took a little diversion to get Supergirl into the Red Lantern Corps. The main fallout of that is that Hal is forced to fully admit to saying Sector 2814 belongs to the Red Lanterns. So, here we open up back on Mogo. We get a little fish Green Lantern. I don't even know what his name is, but he's scanning Mogo for inconsistencies, and inside of the wall of the cavern, he finds a briefcase filled with a bunch of vials of like glowing liquid. He's like, what the hell is this? So we go back to Earth, and we have Hal knocking on the door of his brother, and his nephews open up. They're like, oh, Uncle Hal's here. Yeah, let's have some fun. Show us Green Lantern stuff. And his sister-in-law is like, oh, hey, we were about to have dinner. I'll get you an extra plate. And he's like, nah, I can't stay. It's like, nonsense. Of course you can stay for dinner. Yeah, here's your brother. He's setting up the table. And he's like, no, you really don't understand. Like, I can't stay. And that's when Jim, the brother, is just like, yeah, okay, kids, go to your room. I need to talk to Uncle Hal by himself. And before they leave, Hal gives him a hug and just being like, hey, I just got to leave for a while. It's going to be okay. So Jim and Hal start talking, and he's basically like, yeah, there's an interspace war, and the Green Lanterns are kind of the bad guys, but like only in the way that everybody views us. And just like, okay, what does that mean? He's like, well, here's the thing. I kind of gave up a sector that has Earth in it to the Red Lanterns. And Jim's just like, there are Red Lanterns? How many colors are there? He's like, a lot. Anyway, I managed to keep, there's a Green Lantern that's going to stay on Earth, and he's going to watch over you guys, and he's going to make sure nothing bad happens to you. Meet Simon Baz. And Simon's like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, I'm going to stay here on Earth, because if I leave him, it's a war crime. So yeah, I'm going to watch over you guys now. And Hal's like, look, I get it. I got to go out. I got to deal with this. I need to get the Green Lanterns back on track. It might be some time before I'm back. And yeah, so I'll send word through Simon. I'm not going to be totally off the grid, but like it's going to be a while. So Hal goes and flies off, and then Jim's talking to Simon, and he's just like, yeah, I see you on the news with your little chipmunk sidekick. And yeah, my kids watch you. And he's like, oh yeah, what are they saying? It's like, oh, they say they miss their Uncle Hal. So we go back to Mogo, and St. Walker's just sitting, chilling. He's in like a deep part of the forest, and Mogo is just zooming his way through space. And St. Walker's like, geez, man, you're going pretty fast there. What's going on? He's like, oh, well, Hal wanted us to be like the center of like the problem. He wanted us to go into the war space, so we're going there now. And they get into like a philosophical talk about like, oh, you know, I don't have to go around like the same star. I can go to other stars and stuff like that and whatnot. And St. Walker essentially is just arguing against the strategy of all this and saying like, look, war is not my specialty. I've always known about peace and hope. You know, it's been a whole thing. And Mogo's like, look, any society is going to have some level of conflict. Like, that's the way it is. Even though I'm a planet, I get that. We need to be able to work through that. That's why hope is so important. And St. Walker's like, yeah, I get it, but like, I'm responsible for a lot of death and the fact that the light of the universe is being used up. So, nah, I still don't believe in hope. And so he just walks away. So we then see inside the command center, they are working on some of the Durlin technology that is draining the rings. And they're trying to figure out like, what makes it tick? Why is it able to be built? What's going on? And this is when Hal, Selak, and Kilowog all meet up, and there's like, okay, somebody did like some heavy technology work here. We got to figure out what's going on. So Hal steps up, and he's like, all right, you got all the tech set up, Kilowog? And he's like, yeah. And then all the screens blink out, and he's like stomps his foot, and they all come back on. I was like, all right, well, it'll hold. So we then have the new rookies, 2-6, show up, and she's part of this little war council meeting as well. And this is where Hal's like, look, here's the thing. I'm a fighter. I'm an air pilot. Like, I know instinct. That's my whole thing. But this goes beyond instinct. So I'm setting you guys up to essentially be my counsel. I want your input. I need your help. Selak, you know the Corps better than anyone else. Kilowog, you've been training everybody for God knows how long. And 2-6, you got a thing with like logic and reasoning. I I saw that out in the field. I need you to analyze everything going on with the core and give it to me completely unbiased, okay? And everyone's like, yeah, sure, totally. We're all in. We're glad to help. So at this point, they figure out, all right, what are we going to do? How are we supposed to do this? And they come to the conclusion of, yeah, we need to send Mogo deep into the war zone, go right into the middle. That's where they're going to, hopefully they're going to spare all civilian worlds if they see that Mogo's just right there for the taking. And B, we're going to be in there so we can get more up-to-date information. We don't, we're center of command's going to be closer. So they're straight up willing to do that. And they say, all right, in terms of the tech, we've also found that there is a planet called Guadal. That's going to be part of the supply chain somewhere along the way. So that should be our first place that we check in on. So we cut over to Guadal and we see it's a completely industrialized planet. And the Khund are using it for production of this anti-light technology. But also the Bradesmen are there and they're also helping run things here. So as a shipment is getting loaded up here, we see the Green Lanterns come in and immediately they just start wrecking shop. They're just like, hey, everybody, we see you're making some anti-light tech. Screw that. And they just start destroying this factory. But in doing so, the Khund trigger the extractors, which is what they're called, this technology. It starts coming after the Green Lantern Corps and starts draining them of all their light. And it's like, okay, they're controlling this stuff somehow. We got to figure out how. And that's where they managed to find one of the Bradesmen has a remote control, detonator thing on it. And he's the one controlling it. So it drops down to the ground. And Hal's like, oh, you got to turn it off. He's like, nah, it's got an encryption key. I ain't going to do that. So the one lantern that they have, named Gorin Soon, is apparently a lantern who's made of energy. So he takes off his ring, he goes down into the remote, and he just manually hacks it. He's like, yeah, no, I'm living energy. I could just go in and mess with electronics. That's kind of my whole shtick. So he disables all of the extractors. All the Khund and the people who are working here are all boxed up into constructs. And Hal's like, look, you guys are builders. You aren't warmongers. We know that you were bullied into this by the Khund. And they're like, no, we weren't. We saw your message that you sent out. You guys sounded like Nazis, man. We're not cool with that. We're totally against you. And we did this of our own volition. And Hal's just like, all right, look, we're going to take these prisoners. We're going to take them out, side, not out. And then we're going to level this factory. We're just going to doze it to the ground. We're going to knock it all out. And that's when the other ones are like, what? The tinkerers, the builders and whatnot on this planet, they just said they're against us. We're just going to let them go. And he's like, what, you want to arrest everybody on the planet? No, that's not going to change any minds. We got to win hearts just as much as battles. So he says, besides, I'm saving my anger for the Durlin who caused all of this. And we cut back to Mogo. We see the Durlin is like a deer. He transforms back into his normal form. He goes after that briefcase from the opening sequence and finds it is now empty. And he's like, what? No, I need my radioactive material. Ah, geez, I'm running out of time. So, yeah, he's running out of time. Yeah, it's a solid issue. I like it. I like the idea that we're setting up this council and stuff like that Hal's not just doing this alone. I like the idea that the Durlins have their own breakpoints as well. It feels like an actual war being strategized through. It's not just, oh, we went up and we punched the Durlins in the face. It feels like, no, we have to strategize and also win back public opinion as well. And I like that aspect to it. In terms of everything else, I mean, it's well written. The art looks great. It's just a fine issue overall. I'm going to give it a solid 7.5. It's not quite stretching into great territories, but it is really, really good. Earth 2, number 21, written by Tom Taylor, art by Nicola Scot. So, last issue was, I think it was just basically a whole bunch of setup for Superman's evil. We've got our own Kryptonian. We need to launch a new plan because Superman's totally taken over the world. And we open this one up in Moscow, where Sandman has opened a portal and they're basically just trying to get a whole bunch of the world army back to a safe location. And we see Adam is trying to hold off Superman. Sandman's like, dude, I gotta close the portal. If Superman gets through, they're all dead. And he's just like, don't worry, I'm not gonna let him get through. And so he throws a punch at Superman. Superman heat visions off Adam's arm while he's still in huge form, picks it up off the ground as Adam's screaming, close the portal, I got him. And then just hits Adam over the head with his own arm, knocking him out. And that's where Sandman's like, all right, I'm out. And so the portal closes. We cut over to the Batcave where Jimmy Olsen's like, all right, well, the World Army's been defeated in every single city. Yeah, Superman just destroyed the world in like 2 days. That's all it took for him. Yeah, we're dead. So at that point, Red Arrow starts arguing with Batman. He's just like, we got to get out there. And Batman's like, and do what? You're a man with arrows. And he's like, well, you can come up with a plan. And he's like, yeah, I am. That's what I'm doing now. Shut up. So Dr. Fate's still crazy. He's talking in prophecies and mumbles and stuff like that. And then Jimmy Olsen's like, hey, guys, look, the world is doomed and all. That's going to put anybody on edge. But maybe we shouldn't be arguing about this in front of our company. And he points over to Valzad. And Lois, who was, of course, Red Tornado at this point, is just like, look, seriously, you guys are acting childish. A literal child just pointed that out. So whether or not that's Superman, he clearly has the same powers as Superman, which means we do need somebody on that same level, aka Valzad, to work with us here. So we're going to help him develop his powers, and we're going to do what we can. Batman, your son was a master tactician. I don't know if you are. Do you have any sort of plans or anything like that? And he turns to Major Sato and is like, look, where is the World Army like being evacuated to? Where could we possibly even hide from Superman? And it's revealed that their final fallback is Amazonia, which is essentially Themyscira, but on this planet it's Amazonia, and it's just been opened up to the World Army. This is where they're holding out. And we see Sandman is talking to Commander Khan saying like, hey, so out of like the 10 million people that originally were in the World Army, we saved a little under 100,000. And he's just like, we are screwed. That is horrible. What do you say? I am the worst commander of all time. And he's like, dude, you couldn't have expected Superman to come back. He's like, if I was a good commander, I could have. So at that point, they're trying to contact the world government, but it turns out they've been locked out because they turned to Project Beyond. And Commander Khan says, those idiots. So we get a description of what Project Beyond is. And it's like a whole bunch of underground subway network stuff that's taking specifically the richest and powerful people, the 1%, and they are shuttling them to safe locations. And as they make their way, they've created a giant space ark. And they're going to let as many of the rich and powerful onto this space ark and just fly them away. And we see that it's all loading up, but like there's a time limit on this because clearly Superman's destroying the world. So a bunch of people don't make it on. They're all like fighting each other, trying to get onto the ark. The doors finally close, and he says like, and it doesn't matter if some of the rich and powerful don't get in because they're not allowed to leave the hangar before takeoff. So all of them get incinerated. So we just see at least 10,000 rich and powerful people just instantly get incinerated as the spaceship takes off. And it's like, look, this spaceship was made to take off at unimaginable speeds so that it could escape any threat that Darkseid threw at us. But it's still not going to be fast enough to outrun Superman. And so Superman sees the thing taken off. He's with Beguiler at this point. And Beguiler's like, oh, should we destroy the ship? And he's like, no. I got a better idea. So they go up, they catch up with the ship. There's a bunch of fighter jets protecting it. They immediately go down to Superman's heat vision. And Superman just grabs the ship, tears open the hull, and just starts shaking all the people out of it. Just being like, I ain't letting you leave this planet. Of course they all die. But they die in a horrific and gruesome way. So, and the final thing says, and the 1% will trickle down. Love it. So we cut over to Atlantis, where Commander Khan is calling for, like, the governor who's there. And the governor's like, sorry, man, I can't help you. And he's like, what? Why not? And then Aquawoman steps up. And she's like, it's because me. I'm in charge again. I showed up. I got freed from your prison, Khan. And Khan's like, dude, love it. I was always against them imprisoning you. Queen Morella, you look great today. So she's just like, look, we're not in. But then all of a sudden the call starts getting disrupted. And they think they're getting hacked by like Darkseid's team. Turns out it's Jimmy Olsen, and Queen Morella's like, "Oh, hey, it's you," and she's like, "Oh, hey, Aquawoman." She's like, "I told you not to call me that." He's like, "I forgot." She's like, "You have an eidetic memory. You can't just shut up, kid." So at that point, Jimmy Olsen's like, "Anyway, well, I'm glad we got all of you on one call here. Look, we've got a plan. We've got something going on here. We just need your help to make it work, and we've got our own super person." So then we cut over to, if you remember several issues ago, Mr. Terrific, both Michael Holt and Terry Sloan were borderline brainwashed by, what's his name, Bedlam, and they're forced to do the work of Darkseid, pretty much. And we see they are in Darkseid's clutches, and we meet up with Mr. Miracle, who has some sort of crazy-ass portal open, and they're saying, like, well, are you ready to help turn this planet into something that is capable for Darkseid to make it his because Apocalypse is dying? And Terry Sloan steps up like, "Of course I'm able. I'm the smartest man alive. Get out of my way, stupid idiots." And Mr. Miracle's like, "What? I'm surprised you're able to let him keep his personality while mind controlling him." And Bedlam's like, "It's necessary because the only way he's smart is if he's an absolute prick." And Terry Sloan's like, "Damn right I am." So Bedlam senses that Terry Sloan is hiding something, though. So he peeks deeper into his mind and he's like, "Oh, that's good." And he gets on the phone and he's like, "Superman, Kal-El, hey, they've got another Kryptonian." And Superman's like, "I'm sorry, say what?" So that's the issue. I liked it. I think it's the little moments. I think it's like the whole time that they take away to describe the space arc, the Project Beyond thing. And it's all just a build up for like, nah. The rich and powerful can like eat it. It's all up for a pun of like trickle down. I love that. There's so many other books where I would hate the idea that they're taking 4, 5, 6 pages away from the main story just to do something that's like not going to matter. But because this is detailing the events of an entire world rather than just a specific story of like 1 or 2 characters, these moments are just great world building for me. It's really setting up like, no, this is stuff that's going on and you need to be aware of, rather than we just wanted to tell this fun little side story for a minute. So yeah, I'm enjoying myself. I know Earth 2 isn't for everybody, but up till now, Tom Taylor, he's good at doing Elseworlds. I'll give him that. And Evil Superman. So I'm going to give this one it's definitely an 8. I'll leave it at an 8. It's almost an 8.5, but I'll leave it at an 8. I do think that it slows down a little bit with the Commander Khan stuff, and the first few pages are like, for me, but most everything in this book really works. So yeah, 8, and I am definitely looking forward to the next issue. Green Arrow number 29, written by Jeff Lemire, art by Andrea Sorrentino. Last issue, Komodo killed the leader of the Outsiders and took his place, and Oliver rejected his father in Shadow because they both did really, really douchey things. So this issue picks up 4 years ago with Komodo talking to Emiko. And Emiko's basically saying, like, "Daddy, what happened to my mommy?" And she's just like, "Oh, well, she died when you were a baby." And she's like, "You don't got to lie to me. I know you're not telling the truth." And he's like, "All right, fair enough. Your mommy was killed by a very bad man named Queen. And that man is now dead, but his son is taking power. And that's why I'm training you to be a merciless killer so that you're safe from that son. Make sure that you are never going to be attacked by the son of Robert Queen." So, yeah, that's the whole thing. So we cut back to now, and we see Golgotha, who was the leader of the Outsiders, has been killed. Someone else from the Spear clan has already stepped up to take his place under the reign of Komodo. And it's like, all right, time for the Outsiders to rise. We got a whole thing going on there. Problems that we may see. The Shield clan has already been taken out. We know that Shadow and Oliver Queen are alive. We got to deal with them. And yeah, no worries. We'll deal with that. But as soon as he says Shadow, Emiko, who's standing offside, is just like, "Wait a minute, that's my mom's name. He said she was dead." So we cut over to Prague. And by the way, part of Komodo's whole thing is that all of the major clans that are here, which there are 4 of them, all have their own like weapons that they are building to like take down any government that stands in their way. So we go to Prague, and Oliver's just like, God, I hate my dad. He's not even my dad anymore. He died. My dad died. And that guy that I saw on the island, he's a dick. I don't like him anymore. So he does some recon. He knows the outsiders are working out of Prague because of what Shadow said. So he's done some hunting, and he managed to finally break in, get some information, and find out that they are shipping out of this particular dock. And as he gets there, he sees some men breaking or sending some stuff out. So he sends in what is called the thunderclap arrow, sends out a sonic wave that just like deafens and disorients. So he's able to come in and starts kicking everybody in the face. And he uses some trick arrows. He has good. And he's just like, where are the outsiders? Where are they? And the guy's like, right there. And immediately standing above them are several members of the Spear clan. And just like, oh, right, these guys aren't the outsiders. They were using guns. Those are the outsiders. And they were just watching me the whole time. Crap. So at that point, the Spear clan comes in. They're just like, we are the most honorable because we are the oldest weapon. We pierced the side of Christ. That's how cool the Spear clan is. And just like, yeah, well, I got tinier spears in the form of arrows. And he shoots one up into the sky. And it turns out it's a trick arrow that causes like streams of fire to come down in like an umbrella pattern. And that's why it's called the umbrella arrow. And the fire like burns some of them, distracts other ones enough that Oliver's able to get up behind one. And he holds an arrow tip to his throat and just like, tell me where to find Komodo. He's like, you want to know where he is? Go to the cathedral, but you're going to die there. He's like, what the hell's the cathedral? And then all of a sudden the guy gets a spear through his chest. And another one of the Spear clan's just like, live by the spear, die by the spear. It's a spear way. So Oliver shoots him as well in the chest. And then he makes his way over to one of the containment things that they were shipping out. And he sees that it's filled with sarin gas, which, for those who don't know, is very deadly and a war crime. So he's like, all right, well, I stopped this. I'm able to, I've stopped whatever the outsiders were planning. Now I just need to go and find the cathedral. But first we cut back to Seattle, and we go inside the Clock King's store. Because in this, Billy Talkman, the Clock King, is a mob boss. And because of the whole Dick Dragon thing going on, Diggle, Henry, and Naomi show up, and they're asking for Clock King. Clock King comes out because he hears that it's Diggle. And Diggle's like, hey, man, we want to help you take down Richard Dragon, which I'm still going to call Dick Dragon. And Talkman's like, you crazy. No one can go up against him. The only reason I'm still alive is because I haven't ruffled any feathers. I'm not going up against that guy. And Diggle's like, he can't take all of Seattle. And Talkman's basically like, where's Green Arrow, man? You worked with Green Arrow for so long. I know you did. We have a history. Why isn't he doing anything? And Naomi's like, he's a little bit preoccupied right now, but we're willing to help. We're part of Team Arrow. And Talkman's like, Jesus Christ, this is really the B team. All right, look, why should I help you at all? Especially if Arrow's going to come back and just kick my ass like he always did. And Diggle's like, look, I can guarantee you that Arrow will leave you alone when he gets back if we take this back from Dick Dragon. So we cool? And Talkman's like, I mean, it's a better deal than what I'm getting, so sure, let's see what we can do. So they agree to go on a dragon hunt. So we go back to Prague, and Komodo still is just shouting out like, oh, sun rises upon our ships. We will take back the world to the outsiders and whatnot. And that's when Emiko shows up and just like, you lied to me. You said my mom was dead. She's still alive. You said she was coming. And Komodo's like, okay, look, I told you that lie because otherwise you would have gone out and seek revenge. And you would have like trusted your mom if she showed up. But she got corrupted. She's a bad lady now too. So like, look, it's a whole complicated thing, but you got to trust me, right? Do you trust me, Emiko? And at this point, Oliver has made his way into the cathedral, and he is just immediately jumped. Like, all of the outsiders have shown up. They knew he was coming, and they just immediately jump him and take him out. They bring him before Komodo. We see that the woman who's in charge of the Fist clan, Onyx, gets up on him, and he's just like, look, I already found your sarin gas. Whatever you were planning, it's over. She just punches him in the face and just like, dude, that was only one of them. You stopped the Spear clan shipment. All the other clans had other shipments of things that they're going to do. So, whatever. It's not going to impact anything. And he's just like, oh, I may have jumped the gun a little bit. That's my bad. So, he's brought before Emiko and Komodo. And he, of course, is just a little dick about it. He's just like, hey, Komodo, how's the eye doing? And he's just like, It's going to be a lot better once I do this. And he tells Emiko, like, go ahead, kill him. He's the one who stole your mother from you. And immediately he's just like, Emiko, hey, look, I'm technically your brother. Like, we share blood. Don't do this. Whatever your father's told you, he's lying to you. And she's just like, no, I don't believe you. I've got to do this. But she just can't do it. She's unable to bring herself to shoot him. And so Komodo's just like, all right, fine, I'll do it myself. And Arrow taunts him one last time by saying, like, looks like you can't corrupt her just quite yet. And he's like, shut up. And he shoots Oliver in the head. And it's very point blank. And I genuinely have no idea how they're going to get out of that one. But that's how it ends. I like it. I like the fact that Oliver's so blinded with his, like, righteous fury and his anger at his dad that he just completely ignores the possibility of, oh, yeah, there's a bunch of different clans. I kind of forgot about that. Everything with Emiko I thought was very well done. The Talkman stuff and what Diggle and them are doing, I think it's going to be good when we get Arrow back to Seattle, but I don't think it's good now. I think that right now it's doing setup for a story we'll eventually get, but like those are the most forgettable pieces of the issue to me. I think that it would be a lot better if we just kind of centered down, focused on Arrow doing his thing with the Outsiders, and then just give me a whole issue of whatever backstory you want later on. It may not be the best issue, but it'll all be contained. So yeah, overall, I'm going to say this is a... Do I think it's an 8? No, it's a 7.5. I think there's a lot of good things in it, but I do think that in terms of Green Arrow, this is held to a slightly higher standard than other books because it has been so good now. It's solid. It's just not great. So 7.5 for this, and we'll see how Oliver undoes death, because that's kind of the only other way out of this. StormWatch number 29, written by Jim Starlin, art by Yvel Guichet. So last time, we just won. Like, Jenny Soule destroyed the entire collective and then saved the life of, what was it, Extremax, I believe. And he got the artifact. So we cut back to Skywatch, where the entire team has been teleported back. And just like, well, this must be Extremax. He's the one who teleported us back. But like, what's going on? Did we win? What's happening? And AI's like, look, I'm not picking up any collective. I think they're all gone, but we need to wait until Jenny gets back, because if Extremax now has the artifact of power, we're all still dead. Like, we're all screwed because he's going to rule the whole universe with it. So we cut back over to where Jenny and them are, which they say light years away, but like, I'm 99% sure they're still in dinosaur times. So yeah, but either way, Extremax is like, at last I have the artifact. Let me just do some analyzing. And he analyzes it, and it says that there is a usage requirement. And he's like, son of a bitch. And she's like, what? What's going on? He's like, the only way to use this artifact is to be a natural telepath. I use technology to be a telepath. Therefore, I can't use this artifact. And she's like, so you mean I could use the artifact? And he's like, yeah, totally. So here's the deal. How would you like to be like my partner? I will take you on my council, and we can rule the universe, and you'll just use that thing for unbridled power. She's like, okay, what makes you think I'm not just going to take it and run? And he's like, I'm a telepath. I can see that you're a good person, and that if you agree to do this, your word is your bond. And she's just like, fair enough, but I have a life on Earth, and I don't want to do that. And he's like, well, I can give you immortality, because like once your body runs out, I have the ability to just like make a robot body and give you full-time like rest of eternity. And he's just like, that's tempting. And you're saying I'd have absolute power as well. So that's pretty cool. But she takes the artifact, and she's like, this is more power than I could ever possibly imagine. And so she breaks it apart into a bunch of tiny little pieces and scatters them about. And it seems like she actually ends up destroying one of them. And Extremax is like, yeah, I figured you'd do that. You've got a good heart, and you know what? It may as well be that if I can't use it, nobody can. And she's like, yeah, all right, whatever. So Extremax is like, all right, well, I'll remember our encounter fondly, and we'll meet again. So, peace. And he sends her, teleports her back to Skywatch, and everyone's like, Jenny, hey, what happened? So, a few hours pass, and this is basically just Jim Starlin saying, here's all the stuff I would have done if you gave me more time. So, we wrap up the Apollo and Midnighter thing of them possibly wanting to leave StormWatch, and they're like, I got nothing better to do. Let's just stay here and continue to be lovers. And then we see, I keep blanking on his name. The new guy, his name is like X, and then Hellstrike. They meet up in a hallway, and it's very long and drawn out here, but they recognize each other. And it turns out that Hellstrike was a mercenary for hire down in Africa. And he was hired to basically protect this guy's land. X and his people were running from like a war or something like that, and they crossed over this guy's land accidentally. And this guy, instead of saying like, hey, get off my property, he just started mowing them down. And so all of X's family died until Warstrike came up, and he was supposed to put X down and throw him in the river, but he didn't. He pretended like he did. He told the guy he did, but he ended up letting X go free. And he just like let him go, even after his entire family's been killed. And so Warstrike's like, yeah, I did that, but like I still live with the guilt of you're like letting that guy kill your entire family. Like I feel bad about that. So what do you want to do now? And X is like, it was the past. Shouldn't live in the past. It's not a good way to live, your life going ahead. So whatever, we'll work together, Hellstrike. And then he just leaves, and then Hellstrike's like, he may have forgiven me, but can I forgive myself? So then we got AI, who's now in his own body, talking to Engineer, and she's like, hey, thanks, you really showed me a lot about, like, how everything works. And he's like, yeah, no, you showed me some stuff too, I guess. Anyway, bye, and he just leaves. And then we get the Shadow Lords, and I forget his name, but like the leader of Stormwatch. Storm Control? That sounds right. Basically, they lay it down and say, all right, look, you know that your past is fake, that we just made up a backstory for you, so let's explain exactly what happened. When the Collective made a new timeline, we suddenly didn't have someone who we were okay with being in control of Stormwatch. So we still had Martian Manhunter's DNA on file. We took out the superpowery bits and the Martian bits and just left you as a human. And then we constructed this backstory for you. But like you still had the leadership potential of the Martian Manhunter. And Storm Control's like, right, okay, that totally makes sense. And it's like, yeah, so that's it. Are we cool? Can you are you still gonna lead? Are you gonna continue to be Storm Control? And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna lead. I'm gonna continue to be Storm Control, but like no more secrets, Shadow Lords. You have to tell me everything I need to know, and that includes like anything about this team. And they're like, yeah, no, totally, absolutely. We definitely won't keep any more secrets. And they disappear, and Storm Control's like, yeah, all right, sure, I'll believe that when I see it. There's one more thing somewhere in here where they say like, and then they sent Lobo away. Like, just off panel. Just Lobo returned to his people. So that's happening. And the final page we get here is the Weird talking to Jenny Soule and saying like, oh, you saved the entire universe. How do you feel? And she's like, I don't know. Different, but not. It's just weird. I don't know. Let's go and be around people. I don't want to be by myself in my room. Let's interact. And she smiles as they head to the cafeteria. And that's where it ends. And then I'm just going to spoil next issue. The entire timeline is undone. We just return to the original, like, before Jim Starlin came on, before the Collective, the timeline just essentially wears off, and we return back to everything before. So, sure, yeah. I mean, I don't mind this as an ending to Jim Starlin's run, but, like, especially that back half of the issue, you could tell it was like, this is the story I would have told if DC just let me do my thing. What do you mean it's not hitting numbers? And I get why it's not hitting numbers. Like, this was not a great story overall. As much as Jim Starlin does some good stuff, this was not it. I don't know. This run never came together for me. Nothing really clicked. I found some interesting moments and it hit on some interesting ideas. But like the fact that we spent so long getting Lobo involved and then Lobo did actually nothing the whole time, I don't get that. Like if they wanted to have him and then say like we beat Lobo and then they just left him, so be it. But like they tried to make him part of the team to the point where I think he's like on the cover for either this issue or the last issue. No, he's on the cover of this issue. Why? He's not even here. He didn't even make an appearance. So yeah, no, it just never quite came together. I'd say it's probably it's a 6. I hate saying that because like ending of a run, it should be this big bombastic thing. But honestly, the fact that we just had 2 characters who never interacted, X barely had a point in the story at all, and we just say like, by the way, there was backstory between these two. It's like, what? No, leave that out. We don't need this extra stuff here. Give us the stuff you've already established. So yeah, 6 for this, and we'll see how we finish up in the final issue next month. The Movement, number 10, written by Gail Simone, art by Freddie Williams II. Last issue, Batgirl showed up in town hunting a quote-unquote vigilante who committed a crime in Gotham via self-defense, fled here to Coral City, and now it's a whole debacle of who gets jurisdiction. And then he killed 2 more cops. So we open up with Batgirl having been knocked out earlier last issue. They are bringing her back to the sweatshop, and they're like, okay, we're going to get her down, and we need some leverage over her, so we're going to unmask her, and we're going to get her secret identity, and that'll be it. Like, we'll be able to get her out of town. And we see, I'm blanking on her name. I think it's Tremor. I could be wrong there. She's like, hey, I don't think this is a good thing to do, and Virtue's just like, nah, like, this is what we got. I don't like it either, but we're going to have to do this. And she holds up her camera to it, and that's when Batgirl starts coming to. And she immediately, like, PTSDs back to the Joker in Killing Joke holding up his camera. And she just freaks out. She starts throwing punches. She is, like, about to break Tremor's arm. And we see her, like, punch out Mouse. She's just 100% lost in her flashback. And when everybody's on the ground except for Burden, who she just turns to and just like, am I gonna have to beat you up as well? And he's just like, nope, I'm good. I have crapped my pants. I'm out of this. So that's when Batgirl comes to and she's like, okay, all right, I'm not at my home. This is somewhere else. I'm good. And Virtue comes to and she's like, Jesus, you hit like a truck. All right, look, let's talk about this again. So we see Catharsis is flying over the town because she's out looking for Reese, who is the vigilante from before, also goes by Horizon, and she gets a call from one of the like people who keeps a lookout, and her name is Molly, and she's like, hey, yeah, I think I see him. He's over on this street. So Catharsis lands down and says like, hey, man, you're causing a couple problems around town. We got to talk. And he stands up just being like, leave me alone. I'm not hurting anyone. It's just like, all right, look, you are hurting people, but like, I'm cool with that. I'm all right. I think you're in the right here. You were just self-defense. So let's talk about this. And he throws a punch. She just immediately takes him down. And she's basically saying like, by the way, you're super hot. So go ahead and tell me your story. We then cut over to the, that place, whatever it is, the building for the main villain, Mr. Cannon. And the Graveyard Faction, I think they were called, basically shows up and says like, yeah, we got our asses handed to us. You said these were just going to be a bunch of kids. They are superpowered, so we're out. And Cannon's like, what? No, I hired you. You got to complete the job. And they're like, no, bye. And that's where Cannon's son, the Cornea Killer, is just like, should I go kill them, Daddy? I want to go kill them. And he's just like, no, look, we'll do something else. So we get back to Batgirl talking to Virtue. And Batgirl's just kind of like, yeah, look, it's not cool to reveal secret identities. I know that may just be like a Bat family thing, but like, don't do that. And she's like, fair enough. Sorry, I just was trying to figure out a way to get you off this case. And she says, like, right now, Catharsis is going out, dealing with this our way. We will take care of your vigilante. Smash cut to Catharsis, like, straight up having sex with the guy. So we then cut over to Tremor and Mouse. And Tremor's coming up saying, like, hey, Mouse, remember last issue when you were like trying to ask me out? And he's like, yes, and we will be together forever. And she's like, yeah, it's not that I'm not into you, which I'm not, but I'm asexual. And he's like, and you're a sexual what? And she has to explain what asexuality is. And we cut over to Vengeance Moth talking to Burden saying like, this is always the thing with like having a group of teenagers. It's all about sex in the end. And Burden's like, I don't understand what you're talking about. I have no idea what those feelings are. So once again, we go over to Batgirl and Virtue, and they're just talking about like, oh yeah, well, we're fine with doing this a specific way, blah, blah, blah. And it seems like they're making progress until Virtue says like, okay, so we agree. It was self-defense. We'll deal with him our way. You can go now. And she's like, no, I'm taking him back to Gotham. And they're clearly not coming to a impasse here. So Batgirl lays down some ultimatums. But then we cut back over to Catharsis and Horizon, and they're still just mid-banging. Until finally Catharsis is like, oh man, that was great. That was fantastic. And he's like, are you an angel? He almost says that verbatim. And she's like, nah, I just made the wings in my garage. It's no big deal. So he starts getting emails saying like, oh, why is all this going to happen to me? And Catharsis is like, don't worry, we'll protect you. And he's like, nah, man, they're going to try to kill me. Like, I've done some bad things here. And Catharsis says like, no, you defended yourself. It was a mugging. It's fine. You're good. So she says, look, I know how to get you someplace safe. I can get you a new life. I need you to trust me. Get dressed. So at this point, Virtue and Batgirl and the rest of the gang are pointed out exactly where the caller sent Catharsis to, and they make their way up to the rooftop. And the caller specifically says, like, yeah, they were banging. Like, they got a thing going on. And so Virtue says, like, all right, I think I have an idea where they're going. So they go over to this bridge that's been closed. It's like doesn't even attach to the mainland. And they're miles away from the city saying like, yeah, no, we get away because on one side of this bridge is the rich side of town where consequences are like, they don't matter. And then on the other side is the tweens. It's our side of the city. And that's where, you're from. And he's like, I'm from Gotham. And she's like, no, like everyone has their version of the tweens. Every city has like the wrong side of the tracks. And this is where the rest of the group show up, and they're like, hey, Catharsis, what are you doing? And sirens start coming up, and it's just like, geez, you called the cops? What's going on? I'm trying to get this guy to safety. And it's like, hey, yeah, no, about that. Yes, he did it in self-defense, but like, he also killed 2 more cops after that. And Catharsis looks totally betrayed. She's like, we had sex, and you didn't even bother telling me that? Like, what's wrong with you, man? And so she looks like ego bruised, and he's basically like, look, do what you got to do. I can't go to like Arkham or whatever it is they're planning on sending me to back in Gotham. I'm a hero. I can't do that. I'd rather die. And Catharsis is like, all right, well, I can make that happen. Sacrifice. And so she's about to kill him in mercy. And Batgirl's like, no, stop it. No one's dying. What's going on here? And she basically has to make the call where, she's not going to be able to kill this guy. And she is telling him like, yeah, no, you're going to have to go with Batgirl. That's just the way this is going to have to shake out. And like, I don't like it, but yeah, it's the way that we got to do it. And Batgirl and Virtue get to talking. They're like, look, Virtue, you might have a way of doing things here. I know this sucks the way this all shook out, but like, I promise you that he's not going to be put with like the worst offenders. I'm going to personally keep an eye on him, and I've got some pull to be able to make it so that he's going to be treated right by the cops. I can promise you that. And she's just like, I don't trust you, but I guess we don't have any other option here but to work together. So they shake hands, Batgirl goes off, and she's like, yeah, well, just remember that we don't always get to choose the way that we grow up here. One little last page in this, it was honestly earlier on. It was during the standoff on the bridge where the reveal was happening that he was a killer of 2 cops after that. Burden comes up to Vengeance Moth and says, Vengeance Moth, I think I feel that sexual arousal thing that we were talking about before. And Vengeance Moth is like, literally any other time, please. So, yeah, that happened. I like what this 2-parter was doing in the idea of there is no good middle ground here. Like, if you have two sides, neither of them are willing to budge, but not even that they're unwilling to budge. There is no negotiable middle ground. Like, if one side budges, they essentially give up their position. I like the idea that eventually it just, someone loses that. Like, there is, like, it has to come down to that. And that's not something that you often see here. Usually there is a way that they can shake it out and they can be like, oh, well, we can do this and it's the best of everybody's worlds. But no, this says like, no, there's not always a good way out. So I like that viewpoint. I do think that neither Batgirl or Virtue really expand upon their points that they made in the first issue. It's all essentially the same things being said over and over, which kind of furthers the point more that like neither of them really have anything more to say. They've made their points and they're making it clear, but it does make it for a much more boring issue, which, I mean, if all of a sudden everyone's having sex, that's one way to liven it up, I guess. Beyond that, I think this is probably, I'm going to say this is a 7. And the only reason that it's above a 6.5 here is that I can really appreciate the message that's being said here. There are just like a bunch of things that I would have put it down to a 6.5 for, but I really like what they're saying here. So I'm willing to give it that extra half point. But yeah, no, like the cutting away the graveyard faction stuff, that wasn't necessary. We shouldn't have been bothered with that. But yeah, no, it's a 7. Swamp Thing number 29, written by Charles Soule, art by Jesus Saiz. Last issue, Swamp Thing had a whole heart-to-heart with Capuchin, and then as they returned back home, some random group showed up called the Serene, and they're like, Swamp Thing, we worship you. Let us do whatever you want. So this issue picks up with Wolf and Lady Weeds just kind of moseying about the house, and they're just like, all right, I'm bored. I want to go do something. We've been brought to this world. We should at least be experiencing it. And Lady Weeds is like, I get it, but like, we don't have anything to do anything with. And Wolf is like, you forget, back in my day, I was very rich and powerful, and I've left some certain seeds that may have grown over time. So let us go out and venture into this brave new world. So we see Swamp Thing interacting with the Serene, and Swamp Thing's like, I'm sorry, I have no idea who you are. And they're like, we're the Serene. The Serene. And he's like, what? So they explain that they are a cult that has existed throughout many generations. They worship the avatars of the green, and they do things for the avatars that require the human touch. They require humanity in order to do things like, filling out last wills and estates and like interacting with normal people, just doing normal human stuff. And they're happy to do all this. And Swamp Thing's like, okay, but what do you get out of it? And he's like, dude, you're like a god to us. We just want to worship you. That's like it. And we see Brother Jonah coming out. And he's like, oh my God, the Serene. I can't believe you're still around. That's crazy. Swamp Thing's like, you know these guys? And it's like, oh yeah, no, totally. I worked with them quite a bit. Totally. And he's just like, okay, why did no one tell me in all the time I've been Swamp Thing that these guys exist? And then it's like, well, the first time that you were Swamp Thing, you actually were like swamp. Like you didn't have humanity in you. It was made to think it was Al Holland. This is the first time that you actually have humanity. And that's the only way that they can like sense you, is if you have that humanity in you. So I guess they've just been looking for you this whole time. And the reason the Green never told you about it is because it's a secret. And like there's some things that you'll discover that they can do that the Parliament is not okay with. But then Brother Jonah gets introduced to Capuchin. And he's like, hey, I remember you. And she's like, I don't remember you at all. And he's like, oh, no, totally. But when I was Swamp Thing, I'm the one who offered you sanctuary, the one who said that, like, I would protect you and such. And she's like, oh, my God, it's great. You're so cool. I love you. And at that point, they separate out a little bit. And Jonah gives the rundown of, like, yeah, no, the Serene are cool, but, like, just give them some time. Let them explain themselves. You'll see what they're all about. Meanwhile, we cut over inner city of New Orleans. Wolf is walking down and he's like, all right, first thing we need to do is find a lawyer. But in his time, they were not called lawyers. They were called solicitors. So he stops this woman on the street and says, excuse me, can you tell me where I can find a solicitor? A good one too, not someone from the back alley. She just smacks him in the face and says, oh, go solicit yourself, dick. And she's just like, I don't even know what I said. I have no idea what's going on. So at this point, the leader of the Serene named Knot, he steps up and he's like, hey, Swamp Thing, Avatar, can I talk to you real quick? And he's like, look, I said that we were cool with just worshiping a god, and we totally are. Absolutely 100%. But there is a thing that, like, we've got going with Swamp Things. You're able to make this very specific fruit that allows us to, like, commune with the green in a very spiritual and sensual way. And all you got to do is make the fruit and, like, let us eat of it. So, can you do that? And he's just like, yeah, sure, I guess. And so he makes this fruit and everyone starts biting off of it. And immediately they are tripping balls, man. They are down on the ground like, yay! And so Jonah and Capuchin come over and they're like, I've never been able to taste this as a human before. I'd really like to give it a shot. And he's like, go for it. So Jonah takes one, Capuchin take one, and they just pass out. Meanwhile, Swamp Thing's like, it's quiet in the house. Where's Wolf? So we see Wolf has finally found a lawyer, and the lawyer's like, dude, you don't have any money. I'm not going to work for you when you self-admittedly do not have any money. Please get out of my office. And Wolf is like, okay, let's get one thing straight here. I will have money as soon as you help me. And I am willing to make all your dreams come true with the amount of money that I would be able to come into. But if you don't help me, I will end up getting the money eventually. And then I will use that money to ruin your goddamn life. And that's where Lady Weed steps in being like, and I'll be the one to ruin it. And so he gets scared into helping them out with whatever it is their plan is. So Swamp Thing realizes Wolf isn't around. He wakes up Jonah and Capuchin and is just like, hey, I need you guys' help. I don't know where Wolf is. Can you go out into New Orleans and, like, find them? And he's just like, yeah, sure, totally. Why not? So they head out. Meanwhile, Swamp Thing, like, that night wakes up Knot, and he's like, hey, look, you said that you guys can do tasks, but Jonah was saying something about something the Parliament doesn't like. What's that about? And he's just like, oh, yeah, no, we can let you take possession of one of our bodies and you can be like human again for as long as you want. And we're cool with that happening. And he's just like, tell me everything. So ritual set up that night, and it's like, yeah, no, we're totally willing. You would just take over our body. In the meantime, your body would just, like, lie dormant, but we protect it with our lives because, like, we're super into you. And yeah, the consciousness of whoever's body you take is just kind of just floating in there. Like, you have full control of it. Don't worry about it. And he's just like, I could sleep in my bed again. Hell, I could sleep. Okay, yeah, no, I'm up for this. So he picks out some guy. His name is Pistol, and Swamp Thing giggles at that. And then he's like, all right, we're going to give this guy a little potion just to make the transition easier. And then all you have to do is extend out your consciousness as like a seed. And you should already know how to do that. And he does. And he extends it. He taps it to the guy's forehead. The guy goes into a trance, and Swamp Thing also passes out. And at that moment, Knot steps up and he's like, Avatar, are you all right? And there's no response. And he's like, awesome. And he strips off the beard. He gets on a walkie-talkie and he's like, all right, everybody, round this up. Get the Avatar bagged. We're live in 5. Let's go. So we see Lady Weeds and Wolf are at a tattoo parlor. Lady Weeds is just getting a huge tattoo piece because she's like, why not? Go for it. But then we cut back to Swamp Thing, who now is in the body of a human. He wakes up and he's like, oh my God, I'm human. This is incredible. Why is my heart beating so fast? I don't remember that being a thing. And then he vomits up this huge pile of blood and he looks around and he's completely alone. No one's there. And the arcane mansion that he's been staying at is now on fire. So, oopsie. Seems like the cult is not someone to be trusted. Who would have thought? No, I actually really like this issue because it really blends humor well with like the serious stuff they're going for here in the end. I love the way that regardless of whether or not this cult is actually real, like they still wanted to trip balls. They still wanted to get that fruit and be like, yeah, no, we're really into that. That's kind of half the reason we do this. I like the reasoning as to why they didn't show up before. It all logically flows here. No, this is just a solid new piece of lore here that makes complete sense with what we know about Swamp Thing in the world. And it essentially seems like I was going to say non-evil, but I guess it is pretty evil. The counterpart to what Brother Blood is to the Red. Like, it's a cult that worships the green, but like they might have evil intentions as well. So I'm cool with that. It really works for me. Overall, I'm going to give this one, I'm going to give it an 8.5. I really do enjoy it. I think it's solid. It's a low 8.5. I think that until the Wolf and Lady Weeds thing pays off, I don't really care for those pages, but I'm at least intrigued to see what it is we're building up to and if that's going to be like a major power play later on in this. But yeah, no, for right now it's an 8.5 and I'm looking forward to the rest. And that's it. That's all the comics that DC Comics put out this March 5th, 2014. And I'll be honest with you, I'm actually pretty happy because for once, okay, maybe this is like the 5th or 6th time, but for once that I'm caring to remember, DC's actually playing ball with me because I got to go out of town for the weekend. And that's not going to delay the episode, but the only reason it's not is because DC only put out 9 comics next week. So I am fairly certain I can actually get that done. And in no particular order, I will tell you those 9 comics now. We have the next issues of Batgirl, Batman, Nightwing, Superboy, Superman/Wonder Woman, Green Lantern Corps, Justice League 3000, Justice League of America, and Constantine. A couple of those are event tie-ins. It doesn't really matter. Point being, there's only 9 of them, and I'm super stoked about that. But either way, I don't really have much more to add to this week. It's kind of just normal, average, everyday week. Obviously, next week's probably going to be a lot shorter than usual, but I'll take it. I'm not going to be doing extra work. Screw that. So yeah, what do I usually say at this point? Do you have any comments? Would you like to talk to me? Please do. I want to hear what you have to say. There's a comment section under the video section of this video, or if you're listening to the audio, you can hit us up on Discord or Reddit or Patreon. All of those things exist. And we're on all of them. Links are in the description and or on screen. So yeah, do that. I really don't have anything else to add. It feels so weird just running right through this. But honestly, most people tune out to this section. I could probably reveal like my social security number at this point. No one would know. I'd be safe. It's 4. So yeah, that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching, listening, however it is you consume this podcast. Be sure to give it 5 stars, thumbs up, whatever it is you do to show your appreciation. Send me a handwritten card. That's what I want. But yeah, I will see you next week, and be sure to always remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.